UFC champion Jake Rodriguez had it all: glory, fame, and fortune, until a single kick changed everything. The moment his foot connected with the stoic royal guard, he had no idea he was attacking a man with more combat experience than himself. What happens when a man who's never faced consequences finally meets justice? The guard Jake mocked hadn't moved a muscle during the insult, but his military record spoke volumes. Special forces, distinguished service, combat tours. As Jake would soon discover, appearances can be dangerously deceptive. But how would this collision of unchecked celebrity and military discipline ultimately unfold? Intrigued by how this intense clash plays out? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on this jaw-dropping story. As tourists gathered around Buckingham Palace that morning, Michael Thompson stood perfectly still, his scarlet tunic and bearskin cap a stark contrast to his military reality. Behind his unwavering stance lay a story of combat and sacrifice that none of these camera-wielding tourists could possibly imagine. His mind drifted momentarily to Afghanistan, where, 3 years earlier, he had led a team through hostile territory on a reconnaissance mission that went sideways. 18 hours of strategic withdrawal under fire had tempered him in the crucible of war, earning him a quiet medal ceremony attended only by senior officers and family. The tourist pamphlets described the Queen's Guard as highly trained ceremonial soldiers, conveniently omitting Michael's 3 specialized combat deployments across 3 continents. His classified personnel file documented operations requiring both lethal efficiency and moral clarity in impossible circumstances. The discipline allowing him to stand motionless for hours was the same that kept him alive during operations in Syria. During one extraction, Michael maintained his position for 14 hours without moving, his sniper rifle trained on an enemy checkpoint while teammates evacuated assets. To tourists taking selfies, he appeared merely decorative, a living statue representing tradition rather than a soldier with combat capabilities that would unnerve most civilians. His selection for the Queen's Guard had surprised even him. "We need men who understand real discipline," his commanding officer had explained, "not just those who can march in formation." As Michael maintained his forward gaze, memories of special reconnaissance selection flashed through his mind. 3 weeks of sleep deprivation and testing designed to break even the strongest candidates. Miles away, Jake Rodriguez, fresh off his 3rd UFC middleweight championship defense, stepped from a private car. "This city doesn't know what's about to hit it," he announced to waiting reporters. "No opponent can touch me, in or out of the ring." His words echoed across social media, where millions celebrated his arrival with digital adoration. The golden armor of championship belts had transformed Jake Rodriguez from hungry fighter to untouchable god in his own mind. But beneath the surface of his bravado lurked a dangerous delusion that was about to meet its perfect antidote in the form of a motionless man in a red coat. Jake strutted down Oxford Street, his designer tracksuit worth more than a month's London salary. His entourage, 5 training partners whose roles had evolved from skill sharpeners to ego boosters, moved in formation around him, clearing a path through the crowds. When teenagers approached with phones raised, Devon, his striking coach, managed the interaction. "Another selfie, champ." "2 minutes? Then we roll," Jake replied with that protein powder advertisement smile. The undefeated record that once demanded monastic dedication now merely propped up his empire of sponsorships. 5 years earlier, Jake had been a hungry contender from Miami's working-class neighborhoods, mopping gym floors for extra training time. Each victory since had added another layer of insulation between Jake and reality, until the humble fighter who thanked opponents had vanished completely. The previous night at Whisper Lounge demonstrated just how far he'd fallen. When asked to stop standing on VIP furniture, Jake threw his drink in the security guard's face. "Do you know who I am?" he'd shouted while his entourage formed a protective circle. The entitled outburst was smoothed over with cash from his manager. His social media presence mirrored this decline. Training videos gave way to provocative challenges to authority figures, each like and comment fueling increasingly reckless behavior. As they toured London, Jake noticed an advertisement showing guards at Buckingham Palace. "Look at these guys," he scoffed. "They just stand there. They wouldn't last 10 seconds in the octagon." His entourage erupted in practiced laughter. One mimicked a guard before pretending to get knocked out. Jake's eyes lit with inspiration. "We're going to show the world what real combat discipline looks like compared to these ceremonial toy soldiers." He turned to his social media manager. "Get ready to capture the most viral video we've ever made." Then to his driver, "Take us to Buckingham Palace." Now. The black car rolled to a stop near the palace grounds, and Jake stepped out with the swagger of a man who believed his octagon victories made him invincible, completely unaware that the stoic figure in red was about to shatter his confidence and everything he thought he knew about combat. The crowd parted as Jake and his entourage approached Michael's post. Tourists formed a semicircle, smartphones raised in anticipation. Jake performed for his audience, his voice booming across the courtyard. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm giving you a free lesson in real combat effectiveness," he announced, gesturing toward Michael with theatrical contempt. "This is what happens when tradition replaces actual fighting ability." Michael remained motionless. His training enabled him to distinguish between irritation and genuine threat. He had seen this bravado before, typically from recruits who confused aggression with skill. An elderly man with a military bearing called out, "Sir, step back. These men are active-duty soldiers performing their duties." Jake's entourage blocked the retired colonel. "Just getting educational content. The champ's showing what real combat looks like." Jake circled Michael like a predator flaunting its speed, performing exaggerated stances inches from the guard's face. In the octagon, this is called a stationary target. He threw air punches that stopped short, each mocking Michael's outdated training. The crowd's mood darkened, a collective tension spreading as phones recorded the spectacle, feeding Jake's craving for attention. "For my final demonstration," Jake announced after minutes of escalating mockery, "I'll show why static defense fails." He executed the complex sequence that had secured his championship. The spinning heel kick connected with Michael's face. The bearskin cap flew through the air as gasps rippled through the crowd. For one suspended moment, Jake stood triumphant, turning with a victorious grin. Then Michael's eyes locked onto Jake's, not with anger, but with the cold clarity of someone trained for actual combat. In those eyes, Jake glimpsed the gaze of a soldier trained not for points, but for battlefield survival. The ceremonial rifle clattered to the stones as Michael moved with precise, economical motions. Jake realized the fundamental difference. While he trained to win matches, the man before him had trained to survive war. The distance between championship glory and criminal charges turned out to be exactly one kick's length. What happens when a fighter trained to dominate regulated matches faces the full weight of military justice in a foreign country? Jake was about to find out in the most humiliating way possible. Michael's counterattack landed with surgical precision. The impact sent Jake stumbling backward onto the courtyard stones despite his reflexive block. When Jake attempted a sweeping kick, Michael caught his leg mid-motion and executed a battlefield-worthy takedown that rendered the champion helpless. Palace security swarmed the scene, forming a perimeter around Jake. The retired colonel explained to shocked tourists what promotional materials omitted. These were combat veterans on ceremonial assignment, not mere attractions. Jake's entourage stood frozen, their expressions transforming from shock to fear. Their champion lay subdued on cold stone, his aura of invincibility shattered by a man they had dismissed as a living statue. "Jake Rodriguez, you are under arrest for assault on a serving member of His Majesty's Armed Forces," announced the lead officer, securing handcuffs around Jake's wrists. Each charge hammered home the gravity of his actions. "The rules are different out here," Jake muttered, a sudden clarity washing over him. "Nobody's holding up scorecards." Within hours, smartphone footage exploded across every platform. The hashtag #guard takedown trended worldwide as millions witnessed the champion's downfall. The professional fallout was swift. The UFC suspended him 8 weeks before his title defense. Sponsors abandoned him with statements about company values and appropriate conduct. In a small security office, Jake's legal team outlined the bleak reality: multiple charges carrying potential prison time. British prosecutors made it clear this case would receive their full attention given its public nature. As his championship bravado dissolved, Jake made a surprising request: to speak with the guard he had assaulted. It was his first step toward understanding what discipline meant beyond the controlled environment of a sports arena. A lesson more valuable than any championship belt. The courtroom saga ended with a plea agreement and community service that surprised even the most cynical legal commentators. Jake Rodriguez stood before Michael Thompson in the hallway outside the courtroom, extending his hand. "I've spent my life learning to fight," Jake confessed, his voice stripped of its former arrogance, "but I never learned when not to." Michael's silent, respectful nod in response spoke volumes, marking a pivotal moment in Jake's journey. In rehabilitation, Jake discovered what military personnel had long understood: true strength resides in restraint, not dominance. He mentored young fighters about respecting boundaries and worked with veterans who taught him the value of composure through their battlefield experiences. The fighter who once believed championships defined him now understood accountability's deeper victory. Jake's rebuilt career carried a profound lesson. Beneath ceremonial facades lie extraordinary depths of character worthy of genuine respect.